Michael Burry, a well-known investor, has gained popularity through his activities on social media and the stock market, amassing millions of followers. Despite this, he has recently made an extremely unusual prediction, putting his reputation on the line. While most investors are forecasting a recession and tough times, Burry's prediction is more extreme than any others. He has provided information that offers a rare insight into his thinking, and it is enough to shock the world. Over recent months, fear and greed have driven the markets, with many predicting a financial crisis and the end of the economic bubble. The economy has been suffering from various problems, including soaring energy prices, excessive money printing, and supply chain issues. These problems have slowly eroded the economy, causing a recession that could lead to job losses, loss of homes, and livelihoods. However, there is now a glimmer of hope as things appear to be improving slightly. The latest GDP data from the United States raised doubts about an impending recession as corporate earnings exceeded expectations. Despite analysts and investors projecting a decline in profits, earnings held up well, and inflation readings started to decrease, with the CPI dropping from its peak of 10% to just 6.5%. While some speculated that the Federal Reserve was responsible for a soft landing, others, like Michael Burry, expressed concerns of market destruction. Although inflation has peaked, it is not the last peak of this cycle. It is highly probable that the CPI will decrease, potentially even going negative in 6 or 9 months. The U.S. will experience a recession in the second half of 2023, causing the Federal Reserve to reduce interest rates and the government to increase spending to stimulate the economy. This will cause another inflation spike, which is not difficult to predict. The central banks will cut interest rates as they have done in previous recessions, and quantitative easing will commence again, resulting in an oversupply of cash in the market. The government will issue stimulus checks and tax credits to encourage consumer spending, leading to an increase in demand. But more turbulence is expected to follow. Burry believes that the issues plaguing our economies have not been resolved, only concealed. One of the primary concerns is the supply chain crisis, coupled with increased consumer spending, which is likely to result in a second inflation surge, putting us back where we were in 2021. The Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell will be forced to raise interest rates and end the era of free money, which will cause the economy to crash again. This scenario will result in a prolonged period of stagnant economic growth and high inflation, with stocks providing only a small percentage of dividends to maintain shareholder loyalty. It could be called the lost decade, lasting several years, during which people's wealth and asset value do not increase. This is a terrifying possibility for investors because it goes against all the basic principles of investing. We are frequently advised that by investing regularly in dependable funds like the S&P 500, we can anticipate increased wealth and economic stability. History will repeat itself, as it has in the past, with a looming period of high inflation and economic stagnation. The reason for this is that the policies necessary to end the period of economic failure are immensely unpopular, and any politician who is brave enough to implement them will likely face backlash from the public. This prediction is not new, as it has been discussed for a long time. The last time the United States faced such a situation was in the 1970s, when inflation was high, and policymakers attempted to combat it by hiking interest rates, slowing down the economy, and tackling inflation. However, their efforts were not sustained, and the economy fell apart. After inflation hit around 3%, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates to boost economic growth. However, this resulted in inflation rising again, reaching over 10%. The Fed then raised interest rates to 15% to address the inflation problem, which led to further damage to the economy. Inflation eventually dropped to slightly above 5%, prompting the Fed to lower rates again, causing another spike in inflation above 15%. To fix the situation, Paul Volcker increased interest rates to nearly 20%, causing a significant recession and economic hardship, but successfully curbing inflation about 15 years after it began to harm the American economy. The reason why inflation is difficult to control is that implementing policies to combat it, such as raising interest rates, is unpopular as it causes people to face higher costs for housing, transportation, and debt. The Federal Reserve Board will face political pressure to cut interest rates due to the upcoming election cycle and pressure from the Biden administration. Burry's prediction is not baseless, as there is evidence that politicians would make this decision, including the fact that 17 different U.S. states issued inflation relief checks, which is a cause of inflation. It's important to note that these states are not limited to one political party but include both Democrats and Republicans. The Federal Reserve Board misled the American public by first denying the possibility of inflation and then claiming it was transitory and ultimately beneficial. The Federal Reserve Board may make the same mistakes in the future as they have done in the past. To completely dismiss Michael Burry's predictions as unreliable would be wrong, as his track record of accurately predicting economic trends is better than many people believe. He made a fortune for himself by going against the popular opinion and betting against the dot-com bubble during the early 2000s. In addition to this, he has also proven himself to be accurate in predicting inflation over the past 2 years. In February of 2021, when inflation was only 1.7%, below the Federal Reserve's desired level, Burry tweeted that a cycle of inflation was on the horizon and would become a significant issue by mid-2021, and indeed, his prediction was correct, with inflation rates increasing drastically in the following months. Prior to the current surge in inflation which has captured everyone's attention, Michael Burry had been warning about persistent and stubborn inflation that would not subside as the Federal Reserve had been claiming, even when inflation was only around 4%. He believed that it would become far more dangerous and would not peak as soon as people thought it would. His predictions were proven correct once again in late 2021. With inflation remaining high, Burry has had a near-perfect track record over the last 2 years, especially in predicting inflation. Thus, it would be wise to consider his warnings and prepare ourselves for how to safeguard our finances and invest in this situation. Be sure to subscribe, and thanks for watching.